Welcome to Grit and Grace, the place where grit shapes you, grace carries you, and friends walk beside you through it all. I'm Pam Rader, and along with my co-hosts Erin Payne and Brian Thiessen, we're here to laugh, cry, and tell the truth about what it means to be fully human. Think of us as your old friends. We share real stories, a little cowboy logic, and transformational tools. Because here's the thing, life's gonna kick your ass sometimes, but it'll also invite you to rise. And when you've got grit and grace and a few good friends, you will get through it all. So pull up a chair, grab your coffee, and buckle up. Welcome back to Grit and Grace. It's Pam and Erin.
Hey, everybody.
We've got a really great episode for you today. We've been talking about how we've lost the ability to question everything. In fact, sometimes we hand over our power so easily and so quickly to people who maybe are still wounded and working through their own stuff. And there's a real hidden danger in just subscribing to popular advice in the world. And so I was sharing with Erin that I saw a Instagram meme that said that at one time we gave all of our power to Neil Strauss, who wrote The Game, which is a book basically teaching men how to be pickup artists. Elizabeth Gilbert, who wrote Eat, Pray, Love, who she's a brilliant writer, but at the time she wrote that, she was a sex and love addict. And it seems like they both had that kind of addiction. So we have two people in addiction, powerful, active addiction, sharing their strategies on how to chase in one case and completely avoid in another case, both of which, in my estimation, are not very healed strategies.
Out later and said that they were not healed.
Yes, they came out later and said that they weren't healed. And yet, some of this advice shapes an entire generation, and it came from deeply wounded people that were still trying to make sense of their own path. But we still do it. I think we listen to Mel Robbins. Well, who knows how healed she is?
Right.
There are so many sort of charismatic people out there putting out advice as they're working through their journey. And there's nothing wrong with people sharing their journey. But what's missing is our discernment. And it's really, we have to pose a question here like, are we adopting coping strategies from wounded people disguised as wisdom? If we're just listening to these popular books. You know what I was thinking about, Erin? Do you remember your mom probably talked about this, and my mom did, that Dr. Spock wrote the parenting book back in the day, right? And it was all basically spare the rod and spoil the child. Well,
I
look how
don't.
far we've come from that, right? Like how parenting has changed. And now there's all these people handing over their internal authority to gentle parenting and assuming that that's wisdom, which is just the antithesis of the other end of the spectrum.
Full pendulum swing.
Full pendulum swing. And these concepts have a way of shaping society, and then we get kind of like mob mentality or like a mass buy-in, and it can be really dangerous. So Erin and I want to talk today about how do we distinguish between what's wisdom and what's just someone else's coping strategy? So how do we get to truth and alignment? And then another really important aspect, the distinction between charisma, which a lot of these people have in spades, and character. And I think when we can discern between charisma and character, then we might be better at sussing out wisdom.
And a lot of this too is people not having their needs met and finding their needs met in ways that aren't exactly maybe healthy, right? So you see yourself in this person who's still wounded and putting their expertise out, and it feels good. It almost feels like you're seen and heard because you have a space to take your own wounds, really, and a pathway through them. And so it's like, am I following this person just because I don't get my needs fulfilled in other ways? And I'm really thinking about that lately, right now. That's something that's big for me, and it's like, how did I follow this person who has so much charisma? It's because I felt seen and heard,
Mhm.
and they just told me what I wanted to hear.
Mhm.
So there was like I was just like in, or I just bought in without the question, is this actually really good for me?
I love what you just said there because I think, especially when we're talking about social media nowadays, there's an algorithm and it's very much tuned to what we're interested in or what we're going through. And then we create a confirmation bias. So we get a whole bunch of information that tells us what we want to hear from so called experts coming at us. And we go, see, there's all these experts. This must be the thing. Now, I'm thinking about when I was exploring attachment theory and how much information came at me about how dangerous it is to date an avoidant and how anxious attachment is toxic and just like categorizing, labeling, and pathologizing things that are just people's way of relating that they learned, and it's all malleable.
Mhm.
It's all malleable. No one is just one thing. We're all working through our stuff. We all just have our strategies that we learn to cope. And again, yeah, these are maybe some unhealed people that are sharing their stories, and we go, "Whoa, that sounds like me." And we're
Mhm.
we're looking for that. That again, that belonging kind of works against us in a way. We lose our
Yes.
discernment in our desire to be seen and heard and belong.
Mhm.
I'm not the only one. I'm not defective if this happened to someone else.
It's occurring to me right now too, like, I even heard that you can't actually change an avoidant. So, of course, I can't change anyone, but an avoidant actually can't change, and I have to admit that that made me feel, like, justified in no longer being in a relationship with an avoidant, and I wonder if maybe I got a different message. And it's not the message's fault, it's my own discernment, of course, but how would it be different if the message that I received was different? Which is
Yeah,
our bodies are so intelligent, there's no black and white answer, everything kind of dances in the gray, and
yeah.
who's to say what is right and wrong and what can and cannot happen? It's just really interesting to look back at that, actually.
I love that, and I heard the same message, and I somewhere in there got a little discernment. I was like, "I know that I can change." I feel myself healing anxious attachment to some degree. I can feel myself making progress there, and as I get aware of it, I can interrupt it, and I can move towards secure attachment. So why couldn't someone who's avoidant and aware and wanting to have a better experience with relationships do that as well? And as I got curious about that, that became my experience. And if I had just bought into that, I wouldn't be in the relationship I'm in right now.
Mhm. 100%.
And that, I mean, we're talking about taking advice from outside people that don't know anything about you or your life and allowing that to actually alter the trajectory of your life. That
Yes.
is absolutely the most irresponsible thing that we can do.
It is literally crazy.
It's nuts. Yeah, it's like, oh, some influencer on Instagram that I've never met in my life who's 27.
A
Fuck.
thought leader.
A thought leader. I love that. A thought leader on Instagram.
Yeah, yeah.
And they come up and they cite, their sources or whatever. But, if you actually do some research, most of these sources don't exist. There's actually a really great guy that I follow on Instagram. His name's Dr. Max Butterfield, and he's hilarious. He studies the science of relationships, and he's like a PhD, and he actually studies and reports the empirical data on these things. And he brings up all these posts of people like influencers basically that say, like, if he wanted to, he would. And then he comes on, he goes, that is stupid. That is dumb. Science does not back that up. Here's what science says about it. Here's 18 studies that you can click on to actually see what happens in the human brain and how we can develop healthy habits and healthy relationships. And if you want to have a better life, unfollow the influencers
Mm,
and follow science. And I was like, whoa, I love that there's people out there challenging all this stuff.
yeah, we need that.
Yeah. Now, both of us have had the experience in the past and some in the recent past of, you and I love intensity, and we've talked about that on the show before. but we're also really attracted to charismatic people. And when people are charismatic, meaning that they're can draw you in and it feels like they're so powerful, that charisma is a little bit intoxicating. And it causes us to, much like if you're intoxicated with alcohol, some of our inhibitions, our natural inhibitions or skepticism gets dampened. And then we put something around these people that I like to refer to in leadership training as the halo of competence.
Mhm.
They have so much charisma, they must know what they're talking about. We just put
Mhm.
a halo on them and yeah, they must be competent in that because look at how they're speaking about it and their experience and then we don't even ask regular questions that we would ask.
And we're crazy.
And we're crazy. And then we just start following what they say. And I mean, this is really how cults start.
Cult leader.
Cult leader, yeah.
That's what I
Do
call
you
them.
want do you wanna share your
That's what I call
recent
them.
story about something that's, like, what probably prompted us to talk about this?
Yes, absolutely. I've had a recent experience with who I now refer to as a cult leader because I don't even wanna say his name, to be honest. And so this person was N a well-known person to someone I know. So there was a connection point that, if I'm to be honest, I just didn't even really question. I just didn't even question it. So I started a relationship and got to know this individual, and he was extremely charismatic, and what drew me in was I love highly spiritual people. Like you. There's not I told myself there's not very many of them around, but I'm also, that is I'm challenging that as well.
Mhm.
But I told myself there's not very many people like him around. He's highly spiritual. He talked to me about lineages of yoga. He was teaching me some yoga. He just played a really good game.
It's almost like when we go to church, in the past years, you go to church and you kind of abdicate the power of discernment to the priest or the minister or whatever because like, "Oh, well, they've done their studies, so they must know."
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And this
Yeah,
person
and
was
he
well studied
yeah.
in
And
a
he
lot
told
of,
me he
spiritual disciplines.
exactly. He told me he spent time in Tibet with and I'm laughing because I think most of it's bullshit. Like, I believe he has a high level of confidence, and that is really what and he's a manipulator, so I think that is really like, those 2 things together really make him a cult leader. So, he told me that he has spent time in Tibet, and he was talking to me about moving energy up and down the spine and certain types of breath work, and I was like, "Whoa, the universe sent me a leader and sort of someone who can guide me into some of these ideas around yoga that are what I thought was more in depth, the next levels, right? Really talking about being the observer and surrendering and all of these higher kind of ideas that I did hear from, Muji, right? And he would talk to me about how he knew Muji.
Mhm.
And some of his stories were so outlandish, I just believed him. And what I realized was I wanted to believe him. And it fulfilled my need for significance and love and connection and belonging because I felt like he saw and heard me. I felt like I had a kindred spirit friend. And in the end, he was completely grooming me and setting me up to fail in relationships that I have that are important to me in other areas of my life. And it
Mhm.
all came to a massive head where his true feelings came out, and he was super violent. He threatened. I had to block him. It was crazy. So, basically, I started to push back on some of his ideas, and he didn't like that, and it very quickly what would you call it? It just blew up.
Yeah. Wow.
And he wanted a person very close to me just to completely disown me, no questions asked.
Mhm.
Like, it was literally crazy, and I mean, I brought it to you, of course, right away, and you said to me, "You weren't looking for someone to do that to you because you would never do that to someone.
Yeah.
And so I didn't have it in my vision that someone was manipulating me and grooming me and pitting me against my current partner. And so that's what it was, right? He was pitting us against each other.
Mhm.
I didn't see it because I would never do it. Looking
Mhm.
back now, I can see how he said exactly what I needed him to say, exactly he used my wounds and he created a space of safety and where I felt seen and heard, and I was like, "We're gonna have this relationship for the rest of my life because he's I can't like, I have other people in my life, you and another really good friend of mine, where we have these in-depth conversations around spirituality," and I was like, "Here's another one. Amazing."
Yeah.
And he just it was insane, and I had to ask myself, "Why was I so pulled in?" And it was charisma and the halo of
Halo of competence, yeah.
competence.
Well, and the halo the charisma, great, but I think that this is really relevant, this particular point for all of us. Charismatic people have been sucking people in since the beginning of time, and not all charismatic people are bad. There's a lot of great charismatic people,
Of
I think,
course.
like, doing great work in the world, you look at all the things that, say, Tony Robbins has accomplished. He's accomplished a
Mhm.
lot of those in large part because he's charismatic.
Mhm.
But in my estimation, he also has a certain amount of character. He's got
Yes.
some integrity, and he's doing the things he says he's doing, and like he says, "It ain't bragging if you can back it up."
Mhm.
You know?
Mhm.
And though a lot of times we hand over power and we hand over what I would say is just our common sense because we're in love with this charisma, and when someone with charisma adorns us with their gaze,
Yes.
we feel special, and we
Yes.
cannot ignore that. This charismatic, amazing person is giving me attention, and immediately our vision gets small, and red flags? What? I got sunglasses, I can't see them. What are you
What
talking
red
about? Because
flags?
this charismatic person is shining their light on me.
And I feel special.
Yes, so there is
Gosh.
that element. And so I don't like to be a skeptical person or a person who assumes the worst or doesn't believe people. But I also don't want to be gullible
Yeah. Yes.
and just sucked in and naive. And I've been called naive in my life. My ex-husband used to say I was naive because I also am attracted to charismatic people, and I have been in similar situations where I've f- you know been very disappointed with how someone showed me who they really were. So on a personal level, doing that has had me become a little bit more discerning. And so I
Yes.
think these are valuable lessons. What you went through with the cult leader, it's perfect because you and I don't think that way, and therefore we wouldn't expect others to think that way. And what that does, even for me watching you go through that, is go, "Oh, I need to remain sovereign. I need to actually check in with, like, how does this feel? Where is it aligned?" And I don't need to be right or make him wrong or whatever that is, but if it doesn't fit for me, it doesn't fit for me.
Mhm.
And to be okay with that. And that takes letting go of our ego a little bit because it is so addictive when we perceive someone to have great charisma or more experience than us or more knowledge or more wisdom. When they give us time, two things happen. One, we feel like we're adored and we belong, and that feels good. But secondarily, what happens is that it triggers sort of a reciprocity switch in our brain. They're gifting me their knowledge, and therefore I should gift them my adoration.
That this is so correct, and this is a crucial piece. For me, it was a crucial piece because I was like, "He's just giving me so much, and I'm trying my best to learn how to expand my capacity to receive." So it just really just worked in there. Like I didn't it wasn't even a A
But think about it.
question.
If someone comes to your house and drops off a lasagna for you, that's always in the back of your mind that you should do something nice for that person. Or if they ask
Yes.
for something in the future, you're more likely to say yes because there is a reciprocity trigger that happens in us when we perceive someone as having given us something.
Mhm.
So if we perceive like that we're gaining this spiritual wisdom, for instance, or a trick or tip that's going to set us free, we are more likely to buy something from that influencer or sign up for a program or just give that person our adoration and our respect and our referrals without actually questioning, without actually having physical evidence that backs up anything that they're saying.
And I realized that I gave him my power,
Mhm.
which is probably like so I love that you said we give them our referrals and our business and our money. And for me, I gave him something that was much higher stakes for me, which was I outsourced my power to
Trust.
that mother effer.
Yeah.
And thankfully, it didn't last very long, and I caught it, and it just blew up in this
Mhm.
crazy violent way, and I nonetheless did that. I did that, and it
And
worked
we
on so
all
many
do
levels.
it. Which is why we're talking about, like, you had a culty kind of experience and whatnot, but we do
Yeah.
it, and for all of you listening, you do it. When you hear someone say something that happens to be an opinion or part of their experience, it resonates with you and you're like, "Yeah, I knew it.
Yes.
My partner's a narcissist."
Yes.
Narcissism is such a thing, and I listened to a Mel Robbins episode where she had an expert on narcissism on, and the woman said, essentially, you can't change the weather in Chicago. You cannot change a narcissist. You can't change the weather in Chicago. Well, the more we learn about the nervous system, the more we learn about human behavior, the more we learn about how our personalities are developed, what I see is narcissistic tendencies or like grandiosity, let's call it. And a lot of these charismatic leaders have what I would call grandiosity. They're very sure of themselves and they know a lot of things and they seem very confident. That kind of grandiosity is a response to maybe feeling emotional neglect as a child. So it's just a way of relating to the world. We all need significance, and if you don't get it from your people who are supposed to love you, you're going to have to make yourself feel significant. Now, interestingly, you could have the same primary caregivers, like say your parents were emotionally neglectful in some way, and you have one child that develops grandiosity or narcissistic tendencies, and another one that develops complete people pleasing, boundarylessness as a result. And then we feel sorry for the people pleaser, but we call the narcissist an asshole.
Mm,
These are just ways of coping. They're strategies that people learn to keep themselves safe. And if we start looking at it like, wow, like even the influencers, even these charismatic people, how much of this is their wounding and their coping strategies? Why does this person need to share everything he knows with me? What does he get out of it?
mhm.
Is it really altruistic or does that make him feel significant in some way and he needs me to adore him to feel good about himself? Suddenly the playing field gets even, you know? So I think that when we can look at all of these things, and I do believe there are bad people in the world, there are some people that have some evil intent, and we do have to factor that in. But generally speaking, people find broken ways of relating. And when we question that, we can see it, we can move the charisma part out of the way and see what's really right in front of us. Oh, wow, this is a very wounded individual who needs to be validated by women in particular, that he knows all of this and he needs to have power in his life to feel like a man.
Mhm.
Oh, well, that's very different than he's really charismatic and smart.
I'm laughing because it's crazy, and you're exactly right. And I love the idea of taking my own judgment out of the picture because for me, I will be less likely to go down one rabbit hole or the other if I come from a space that is just clear. This is just the way he relates to people in the world because of his own wounding. It takes my own judgment out of the picture, and then I can think more clearly.
Yeah.
Like, does that make sense? Like almost like cognitive dissonance a little bit. It's like
Yeah,
when I
yeah.
hear what I want, then boom, I'm in a rabbit hole now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I can just sort of create the safety in me that I don't need to attach to an idea or something, eat, pray, love, right?
Mhm.
Just like bouncing when shit gets a little bit hard, then I
Yeah,
can
just
have
leave
more
everything
discernment.
behind and go eat pasta and have an affair. Like, yeah, that'll make your life better. It seems romantic and lovely. Turns out it was
Yeah.
completely
Yeah.
self-destructive,
Crazy.
love and sex addiction.
Crazy.
And yet a whole generation bought into it and Julia Roberts played the part. Like, come on.
Yeah. Wasn't Javier Bardem in it too? Because I
I
really
think
like
so, yeah.
really like him. If I'm gonna
And
find him in Bali, then I'm, going there.
essentially, I think that what it comes down to is this. As long as we buy into this idea that there's someone out there that knows that has the answer, that's going to save us, the white knight that's coming in to get us, that it exists outside of ourselves, we are at risk for falling for charisma, falling for influencers, falling for wounded people's advice. And for me, what really was the game changer is that the more I study universal truths, the more trainings and programs that I do, the more books I read, what I realize is the real wisdom is so simple.
Mhm.
There is no more like big revelation or this giant like surprise that I didn't know about. Universal truth is simple. And the depth that we seek is simple. You already have the answers, but you're seeking to go wide instead of deep. You think having more and another shiny object will finally give you the missing piece that will have you feel whole. When in actuality, the simple thing is what you seek is within you. If you want to be more spiritual, be more fucking spiritual. Like
Mhm.
sit down and meditate and watch your thoughts,
And make
pray.
it aligned with who you are.
Yeah, like, have some reverence, I don't know, light a candle, do whatever you wanna do, but, like, it's
Alignment.
just that simple.
I believe that when we can really start to sit with ourselves and understand ourselves, know thyself on deeper levels, higher levels, like some people, some of us, me included at times, can't even, like, it's hard to even sit with myself and just return to myself. And I really believe that the more we do that, the more we can be really um, sure or certain, or we can trust that that answer actually is within us. And I do know. Honestly, I wonder, and not that I think about this very much, but I wonder how long I would have been under the spell of the cult leader even 3 years ago,
Oh,
4
yeah.
years ago. It would have,
Gosh,
oh
that could
my
have been
god,
completely destructive.
right?
Yeah.
The destruction that could have happened in my life. Oh my, I don't even want, it doesn't matter. I don't even want to think about it. I'm just saying, like,
But I
I
wanna
started to question.
Yeah. Yeah, you were like,
And
"Wait a minute."
yeah, it
And
was
that's
like,
what I wanna get to, some questions that we can give to people that they can ask to be in that discernment, because make no mistake, folks, the algorithm is a cult leader. Okay?
yes.
Because whatever you think and you look up, it will send you confirmation bias over and over and
Mhm,
over again via any kind of media. Your phone is listening to you. Your Instagram is curating things that you want to see. Your Facebook, all of it. You're getting ads, Google ads based on what you talk about, think about, and you're only being shown things that already confirm your limited thinking.
mhm.
And so, we do need to learn to question everything. Now, I remember being at a yoga training with Baron Baptiste, and someone questioned him about something, and he said, "Good, question everything." He said, "You should question all your teachers. You should always think for yourself." And he said, "Never put me on a pedestal because I will disappoint you. I am a man. I will disappoint you. I am not a guru, you know? And Tony Robbins is famous for his documentary. It's called I'm Not Your Guru.
Mhm.
Be leery of anyone who puts themselves in the position of expert and guru.
Yes, especially online.
Yeah. So, some questions that we can start to ask. I think number one is like, where did this idea come from? Where did this idea come from? And for you, it would be like that I need to be more spiritual. Where did that come from? Is that coming from scarcity, from lack, a
Yep.
desire to belong? Like, where is that coming from? And then where are his ideas coming from?
I mean, I'm just like, of course, I'm contemplating all of this for sure. And some of his ideas were definitely radical.
Yeah. And then so we can ask, like, okay, so he has these radical ideas, like what pain might have shaped it? I mean, even if we're looking at books that are popular right now, what pain might have shaped this thing that they're putting out there? Mel Robbins' book, Let Them. It's great. It's a good book. There's nothing wrong with it. And it's a she oversimplifies I mean, it is simple, but she oversimplifies in my estimation, a very ancient teaching from yoga, which is acceptance. And Byron Katie's been teaching it for years, like loving what is. It's
Hmm.
just like, let it be. Aristotle said real power is to be and let be. So, let them is not new and it's not hers.
Hmm.
But then everybody just takes what she's saying as though it's so much wisdom. But really look, what pain might have shaped that? Is this advice that is helpful for you right now in this situation? And does it create more connection in my life or separation? And in
This
your
was
case, it
a
was gonna
huge
create
one.
separation.
Yeah, it was creating separation, and I started to realize it. I'm just gonna toot my own horn a little bit because I realized it pretty quick. I'm really grateful to myself that I realized it pretty quick, that it was creating major separation everywhere. I'm just like, "Whoa," and in the end, I was separating even from myself because I was allowing a convincing of certain aspects of my life to happen, and I was like, "Whoa, wait a minute here." So
Yeah,
that's a good one. That's a really good one. Like, what is the real tangible proof in my life that this is creating more connection or more separation? Just like
right.
there's boom.
When people come to me as a coach, I want them to leave feeling more connected to themselves, to the people in their lives, and to whatever they call source.
Yes.
And not they don't need to be connected to me for that to happen.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
know? Another question
Exactly.
that we can ask is, am I using this concept to understand something, or am I using it to defend my current point of view?
Mm.
Like, is
Cognitive
it just
dissonance.
confirming what I already believe?
Yep. That's a big one, especially now. It's like, if you can catch that, I'm just using this to put in my gun and use as weapons to defend my own thinking.
Yeah.
If you can catch
Wow.
that, that's huge.
And I always say the truth doesn't need defending.
Yes, you
As
do
soon
say
as
that.
you're trying to defend something, like, maybe check yourself.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
then, like, growth requires discernment. So we do have to question. And wisdom requires context. So, as I said with Mel Robbins' book, nothing wrong with it. Great idea. But in this context, does this advice actually serve me to get me more of what I'm looking for in my life?
Mhm.
Maybe you have someone who's kind of being like a little bit abusive verbally, and you go, well, let them. Well, that's not good advice.
Right, that's not gonna work here.
Yeah. So, we actually have to have some discernment. Wisdom requires context.
Yes.
And then compassion requires humility. So it's like, yeah, these people are wounded just like me. They're sharing their journey just like me, and it might not be complete. And so I'm going to have that discernment going in. But I think the biggest thing we want to get to here, just as we wrap this up, is personal responsibility. So
I mean,
taking
yeah.
personal responsibility, it's your life, it's your
Yep.
journey.
No one's gonna
And
save you.
no one's coming. No one is coming. I know we all hope that someone's gonna come kick the door down with a white horse and pick us up and we're gonna finally get the answer, but it's not happening. We wanna stop outsourcing our truth to influencers, stop using, like, there's relationship content on social media. It's entertainment. It's not truth.
Mhm.
And we wanna notice, like, algorithm-driven psychology, and when I say algorithm, I'm not just talking about social media. It's kind of like our brains have an algorithm that will tune us in for confirmation bias.
Absolutely.
So one of the things I like to do is listen to podcasts and read things that I currently don't agree with.
Well, that's a great way to just keep the neural pathways open. And
Yes. And
yes.
I listen to, like, people that kinda trigger me sometimes or bother me, and I get really discerning, and I'm usually surprised to get at least 1 or 2 pieces of information. I go, "Well, okay, I might consider that." And I'm surprised that I'm gonna consider that, but it keeps, yeah, the neural pathways open to being malleable
Mhm.
instead of just deepening the groove to what I already know.
I have a question that is maybe not quite related, but do you feel like listening to people who kind of trigger you, do you think that's a good way to just kind of train the nervous system or to regulate through some of the things that trigger you and it just helps with the nervous system regulation just in general?
100%.
I'm just catching that right now.
I listen to a couple podcasts, I won't say who they are, but I listen to a couple podcasts that I get so grated by the host, and I'm just like, and though I listen and I watch my own judgment, and then I say, "Why does that trigger me so much?"
Mhm.
Well, I'm embarrassed for this person because they're coming across as, like, really obnoxious or abrasive. Ooh, that's me not wanting to be too much.
Hmm.
And so it's just like if you can do that, you develop some resilience for feedback.
Yes.
And that's a big part of this. We have no resilience for feedback, which is why we
Yeah.
look for people that agree with our point of view. And we have to be
Absolutely.
really careful of that because it's just stagnating.
And that goes back to the judgment piece that I was talking about too. I feel like you're literally moving your system through judgment, thereby kind of lessening your nervous system response and just regulating through it. And then, boom, we can access our frontal lobe and think more clearly and have more discernment. Just,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. So I just want to say, as we kind of wrap this up, wounded people sharing their stories is not the problem. Erin and I are wounded people sharing our stories. Question everything we say to you. Fuck yes, question everything, because sometimes we put on a show and then the next week we're like, "Wow, we actually know some things that are different now."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The problem is when we stop thinking and just start following.
Hmm.
So wounded people sharing their stories, not a problem. But when you stop thinking for yourself and you just start following, that's when we run into trouble. So let's encourage curiosity over certainty, nuance over labels, connection over ideology, and personal truth over whatever's popular in the culture right now.
Personal truth being the key there.
And this goes right back to our episode a couple of times ago about having the courage to be misunderstood. You're just going to have to. Um, any final words, Erin, on this?
I mean, it's so sneaky, it's so sneaky. I think that a lot of this is really triggering if you're in a victim mindset, right? You don't want to hear that you might be wrong about
Mhm.
something. And so I feel like if the advice makes you feel superior, justified, defended, or like a victim, pause. And
Mhm.
that might be your cue to question it. And there's nothing wrong with questioning it. I mean, we question stuff all the time, and I of course, then there's times when I don't question, and I should, and it was just a realization that it's like, question everything. That's what I'm trying to teach my children too.
Yeah, question
Question
everything.
everything.
Doesn't mean don't trust, but
No,
you're moving the trust from out here to in here.
it's a in here, an inward
Yeah,
looking.
I love it. Okay, if you like this show, if you know somebody who could benefit from this show, and I mean, really, probably everyone could because this is kind of a sticky topic, and I think we're all
Mhm.
guilty of it at times. Maybe the cult leader is your father, or like your, there's someone in your
Yeah,
family that's really leading the charge, and you're just abdicating your power to them. Um, but if this resonates with you, share the show. We love to start conversations. We love to know that the show is growing and that we seem to be hopefully helping some people.
yes.
And if you'd like to do some more work around this kind of stuff, please come and join us at the Grit and Grace Retreat, May 21st to the 24th. We are planning an extraordinary 4 days of, inner wisdom seeking, and it's going to be so much fun. So we'd love to
It's
see you
gonna
there.
be great. I can't wait.